In the dusty village of Okpulu, where the earth smelled of hope after rain, and the trees sang when the wind whispered, there lived an old woman named Mama Ngozi. Her back was bent from years of carrying baskets of cassava to the market, and her palms were like cracked clay bowls from tending the earth. Yet her eyes still held the fierce fire of a mother who would cross rivers and climb hills if it meant her child would be happy. Her only son, Chijioke, was the pride of the village. Tall like the palm trees that lined the river bank, with skin as dark and smooth as midnight, and a mind sharp as the blacksmith's blade. He had finished university in the city, returned with a good job in the local government office, and built Mama Ngozi a small bungalow that smelled of fresh paint and hope. But there was one thing that brought the old woman tears at night. Chijioke refused to marry. I will not be tied down, he would say, folding his shirts with careful precision as he prepared for work. Marriage is a distraction, Mama. Let me focus on building our lives. Which life will you build, my son, when your bloodline dies with you? Mama Ngozi would cry, clutching her wrapper as she sat on the edge of her bamboo bed. But Chijioke would only shake his head and step out into the dawn. Every market day, women would whisper as Mama Ngozi passed, "Is it not Chijioke's mother? Ah, that one. Her son will not marry. Has she taken him to the prophet? Maybe there is a curse. A fine boy like that refusing to marry? There must be something wrong." Their words stung Mama Ngozi like bee stings, piercing her heart. Each day, she went to sell her yams. It was not that Chijioke lacked suitors. Girls lined up with baskets of fruit, with shy glances, with sweet words, with carefully cooked meals delivered under the guise of greeting Mama. But Chijioke would only smile politely, take the gift, and disappear into his room. In the evenings, Mama Ngozi would sit outside her small veranda, pounding yam in the mortar while staring at the dusty road that led into the village. She would sigh, remembering how she had fallen in love with Chijioke's father, Okafor, under the mango tree near the stream. They were young, foolish, and in love, building dreams as they fetched water, stealing glances as they washed clothes by the riverside. Okafor had died when Chijioke was 10, leaving her to raise him alone, to teach him how to be a man in a world that demanded too much. She had sacrificed everything, even her comfort, so he would go to school and become the man he was now. But what was all her sacrifice for if Chijioke would not carry on the family? One night, as she knelt to pray, tears streaming down her face, Mama Ngozi lifted her hands to the low ceiling of her room. God of my fathers, God of the hills and rivers, do not let my son's name die in this village. If I die without seeing my grandchildren, what have I lived for? That night, Mama Ngozi could not sleep. She stared at the moonlight that leaked through the crack in the wooden window, and an idea began to form in her mind. It was foolish, yes, and people would laugh if they heard it, but a mother's love was stronger than the laughter of neighbors. The next morning, Mama Ngozi woke before dawn, bathed with cold water from her clay pot, and dressed in her oldest wrapper, the one she had worn since Chijioke was a child. She tied a torn headscarf around her head and smeared charcoal on her face to look older than her age. She limped out to the dusty road with a walking stick, looking every inch a beggar who had no hope in the world. Her neighbors stared as she left, some whispering, others watching with confusion. She made her way to the busy junction near the market, where travelers passed with lorries and motorcycles, and where young people often gathered on their way to work. There, she sat on the ground, a small calabash in front of her, and began to beg. Nay, please help me, she would call out in a trembling voice, stretching out her hand to passers-by. Some people dropped coins, others ignored her, hurrying to their destinations. Children pointed and mothers dragged them away, whispering about how unfortunate life could be. But Mama Ngozi was not looking for money. She was looking for a wife for her son. Each day, she watched the young women who passed. She noted how they walked, how they treated the beggars, how they spoke, and how they helped those who fell on the road. She saw the girls with painted nails and loud laughter, the ones who clicked their tongues at beggars and walked away. She saw the shy ones who bent to drop coins, offering a smile before hurrying away. Days turned into weeks, and Mama Ngozi remained at her post, waiting for the one whom the spirits would direct to her. One afternoon, when the sun was high and the air was thick with the scent of fried akara from the roadside, Mama Ngozi saw her, a young woman in a simple blue dress, with skin as dark as freshly tilled soil and eyes that held the kindness of dawn. She carried a basket of oranges, balancing it effortlessly on her head, her steps light but steady. As she passed, Mama Ngozi called out in her trembling beggar's voice, Nay, please, help me with anything. The girl stopped, lowering the basket from her head with gentle care. She reached into the basket and brought out 2 oranges, placing them in Mama Ngozi's calabash. Eat, Mama, she said softly, her voice like a breeze over calm water. I do not have much, but may God bless the little I have given. Mama Ngozi looked into her eyes and saw something she had not seen in the others: compassion, humility, and strength. What is your name, my daughter? Mama Ngozi asked. My name is Amarachi, the girl replied with a small smile, picking up her basket again. Amarachi, Mama Ngozi repeated, tasting the name like honey on her tongue. May God bless you, Amarachi. The girl nodded and walked away, leaving Mama Ngozi with the oranges and her heart pounding with hope. That night, Mama Ngozi returned home, removing her beggar's disguise and placing the oranges on the small table in her kitchen. She sat on her bed, praying and thanking God for showing her Amarachi. The next morning, she went to the market, asking quietly about Amarachi. She learned that Amarachi lived with her grandmother at the edge of the village. Her parents had died when she was young, and she had grown up helping her grandmother farm and sell oranges to make a living. Everyone who spoke of Amarachi praised her. She is a good girl, always helping others. She prays every morning at the stream. She has rejected many men because she wants a man who fears God. Mama Ngozi smiled, her heart swelling with certainty. This was the woman who could change her son's life. 2 days later, Mama Ngozi wore her best wrapper and tied her headscarf neatly. She carried a small basket of yams and palm oil and walked to Amarachi's house at dawn. The old grandmother, Mama Ifeoma, came out to greet her, leaning on her walking stick. Mama Ngozi, what brings you here so early? Mama Ifeoma asked. I came to greet you, my sister, Mama Ngozi replied, handing her the basket. They sat on a wooden bench under the mango tree as the birds sang above them, and Mama Ngozi shared a story. My son, Chijioke, refuses to marry, but I have seen your granddaughter, and I believe she can bring light into his life. Mama Ifeoma listened, nodding as tears filled her eyes. Amarachi is a good child, but it is God who gives husbands, Mama Ifeoma said softly, Yes, and it is God who directs mothers to find wives for their sons, Mama Ngozi replied, holding her friend's hand tightly. Amarachi came out, kneeling to greet Mama Ngozi respectfully. My daughter, I have come to ask if you would consider visiting our home to help me with some chores, Mama Ngozi said, smiling. Amarachi looked at her grandmother, who nodded gently. Yes, Mama, I will come. When Amarachi came to the house, Chijioke was in his room, reading a file for work. Mama Ngozi called him out. My son, this is Amarachi, the daughter of my sister, Mama Ifeoma. She will help me with some chores today. Chijioke barely looked up, nodding briefly before returning to his room. But as the day passed, Chijioke could not ignore the soft laughter that floated from the kitchen, the careful way Amarachi swept the compound, or the way she sang softly as she washed the plates. It was as if a new breeze had entered their home, pushing away the stale air of loneliness. When Amarachi was about to leave, she knelt before Mama Ngozi to say goodbye. Thank you for allowing me to help, Mama, Amarachi said, her eyes bright with humility. Chijioke stood at the doorway, watching her quietly, something shifting in his heart that he could not understand. That night, Mama Ngozi prayed again, tears rolling down her cheeks as she thanked God for bringing Amarachi into their lives. She did not know how or when it would happen, but she believed that the seed had been planted. In his room, Chijioke sat by the window, staring at the moon, thinking of the girl with the soft laughter and the gentle smile. And for the first time in a long while, Chijioke wondered what it would be like to come home to such a presence every day. The dawn broke gently over Okpulu, painting the sky in hues of orange and soft purple. The cocks crowed one after another like drums rolling across the compound, waking the spirits of the new day. Mama Ngozi stepped out of her room with a small broom, sweeping the front of the house while whispering prayers under her breath. In her heart, she held the quiet hope that had taken root after Amarachi's visit. She had seen the way Chijioke glanced at Amarachi, even if he tried to hide it behind the walls he had built around his heart. She believed that if the breeze of Amarachi's gentle spirit could enter her son's hardened heart, the winds of change would surely follow. Amarachi returned the following week, carrying a small basket of freshly plucked ugu leaves, tomatoes, and scent leaves from her grandmother's garden. I thought Mama might need these, she said softly, her voice like the rustle of leaves on a calm morning. Mama Ngozi's heart warmed. She held Amarachi's hands and kissed them lightly. My daughter, may God bless you. You have brought sweetness to this house. Amarachi smiled and began to help with the morning chores. She swept the compound, fetched water from the well, and cleaned the cooking area with careful hands. Chijioke came out of his room, holding a file, preparing to head to the office. His steps paused when he saw Amarachi bent over the cooking area, washing vegetables. A soft breeze lifted her wrapper slightly, and a gentle smile was on her lips as she hummed a song about God's faithfulness. He looked away quickly, scolding himself. Why am I even looking at her? I have work to do, and Mama is already reading meaning into every smile. But as he passed her, Amarachi looked up and greeted him. Good morning, sir. Chijioke paused, clearing his throat. Good morning, Amarachi. She smiled and he felt something warm crawl up his chest, like sunlight peeking through thick clouds. He almost forgot the file in his hand until Mama Ngozi's voice called him back to reality. My son, your food is ready. I'm not hungry, he replied quickly, turning to leave. Amarachi lowered her gaze, but Mama Ngozi's sharp eyes caught the way her granddaughter's friend's lips curved sadly. The market was alive that day, as it always was on a Wednesday. Traders yelled over one another, the smell of fried akara mixing with the scent of fresh pepper and dry fish. Women balanced baskets on their heads while bargaining in loud musical voices. Mama Ngozi, we saw Amarachi leaving your compound this morning, one of the women teased, a wide grin on her face. Yes, oh, is it true that you are now looking for a wife for Chijioke from the market? Another added, laughter in her eyes. Mama Ngozi smiled, wiping her hands on her wrapper as she arranged her yams. Is it not good for a mother to desire a wife for her son? Do you people want me to die without seeing my grandchildren? They all laughed, but some of them nodded in understanding, for they too were mothers with sons who thought themselves too important to marry. Inside, Mama Ngozi prayed that God would keep Amarachi's name clean, for tongues in the market were sharp and could cut down the reputation of a young woman with rumors. But she also knew that destiny could not be stopped by the whispers of people. One afternoon, while Amarachi was helping Mama Ngozi to pound yam, she suddenly felt dizzy, the pestle dropping from her hands as she stumbled backward. My daughter, what is it? Mama Ngozi cried, rushing to hold her. I don't know, Mama. I feel dizzy, Amarachi whispered before collapsing in Mama Ngozi's arms. Panic surged through the old woman's veins. She screamed, calling for neighbors, and together they rushed Amarachi to the small health center in the village. Chijioke, hearing the commotion, left the office and ran to the health center, sweat pouring down his face as he found Mama Ngozi pacing outside. What happened? He demanded, eyes wild with fear. It's Amarachi. She fainted. Chijioke's breath caught. Without thinking, he pushed the curtain aside and entered the small room where Amarachi lay on the bed, her face pale, eyes closed. Amarachi, he whispered, kneeling beside her. Her eyelids fluttered, and she looked at him, her lips trembling into a weak smile. I'm okay. I just didn't eat before coming. Something inside Chijioke cracked. You came here without eating. Why? I wanted to help Mama. His heart tightened painfully. Here was a girl who thought of others before herself, who helped his mother without complaint, and who fell sick because of it. When Amarachi was discharged, Chijioke insisted on taking her home himself. He borrowed a motorcycle from a friend and rode carefully, Amarachi sitting behind him, holding lightly to the edge of his shirt. The ride through the village was quiet, the wind soft against their faces, the red earth rising in small clouds as they moved. Chijioke felt her presence, light yet comforting, and for the first time he found himself wishing the road was longer. When they reached her grandmother's house, Amarachi thanked him softly, her eyes shining with gratitude. Thank you, Chijioke. God bless you. He cleared his throat, feeling awkward under her gaze. Take care of yourself. Eat before you go out next time. She nodded, and he watched her until she disappeared into the small compound. As he rode back home, the breeze against his face did nothing to cool the heat in his chest. That night, Chijioke could not sleep. He turned on his bed, the ceiling fan squeaking with every rotation, as thoughts of Amarachi filled his mind. Her laughter, her kindness, her humility. He saw the way she smiled at his mother, the way she helped without expecting anything in return, and how she almost risked her health just to assist. He remembered how empty the house used to feel, how his mother's eyes often looked sad, and how she would sometimes stare at him in silence while eating. The unspoken prayer for grandchildren hanging in the air like thick smoke. But he had always been afraid of marriage. He had seen men in the city reduced to nothing because of women who drained their pockets and spirits. He had seen friends who turned into shadows of themselves because of the wrong choice of a wife. But Amarachi is different. A small voice in his heart whispered. He sighed deeply, covering his face with his palms as he prayed silently for clarity. While Chijioke wrestled with his thoughts, Mama Ngozi knelt by her bedside, tears streaming down her wrinkled face onto the hard floor. God, I am only an old woman, but you see my heart. You know I want the best for my son. If Amarachi is your will for him, please touch his heart. Let him see the treasure that you have brought into his life. She wept softly, her shoulders shaking until sleep found her on the cold floor. The next morning, Chijioke woke with a sense of resolve. He dressed for work but decided to take a detour. He rode to Amarachi's compound, finding her sweeping the front yard, her wrapper tied firmly, the early morning sun lighting her skin like burnished gold. She looked up surprised. Chijioke, good morning. Good morning, he replied, stepping down from the motorcycle. I I just came to check on you. Her eyes widened and a small smile curved her lips. I'm fine now, thank you. There was a moment of silence, the breeze rustling the banana leaves nearby. Chijioke cleared his throat. I I wanted to ask if you would come to help Mama again today. She says she misses your cooking. Amarachi laughed softly, her eyes bright. I will come. Thank you, he replied, turning to leave. But he paused, glancing at her one more time before riding away. It did not take long for the village to notice the change. People saw Chijioke stopping by Amarachi's stall in the market, helping her lift heavy baskets, or dropping small coins for oranges he did not need. They saw Amarachi visiting Mama Ngozi more frequently, laughter and the aroma of her delicious cooking filling the compound. The whispers began again. Have you seen Chijioke these days? The boy is changing. Amarachi is a good girl. If he marries her, it will be God's doing. They look good together, don't they? Mama Ngozi heard these whispers, but this time they were like sweet music to her ears. One Sunday afternoon after church, Mama Ngozi sent Chijioke and Amarachi to fetch water from the river. The path was quiet, the sound of crickets and rustling leaves filling the air. As they walked, Chijioke found himself glancing at Amarachi, her steps graceful, her laughter gentle as she pointed out birds in the trees. When they reached the river, Amarachi knelt, filling the clay pot with water, her reflection dancing on the surface. Chijioke stood beside her, watching the way the sunlight touched her hair. Amarachi, he said softly. She looked up, water dripping from her fingers, her eyes questioning. Thank you for helping Mama, for helping me, even if you don't know it. Amarachi's lips curved into a soft smile. You don't have to thank me, Chijioke. Mama is like a mother to me. There was silence, the sound of the river flowing like a gentle song between them. Chijioke took a deep breath. Do you think marriage is important? He asked suddenly. Amarachi blinked, surprised before lowering her gaze. I believe it is God's plan for family to continue, but only if it is with the right person. Their eyes met, and in that brief moment something passed between them, like the soft breeze that made the river's surface dance. The rainy season came softly upon Okpulu, washing the dust off the red roads and breathing new life into the green leaves of the cassava farms. The clouds would gather like grey elders in council before letting down their tears, and the children would run outside to play, laughing under the showers. In Mama Ngozi's compound, the rain dripped gently from the zinc roof, creating a soothing rhythm against the clay water pots. Inside, Amarachi sat on a small wooden stool, helping Mama Ngozi peel cocoyam, while the aroma of boiling egusi soup filled the room. Amarachi, my daughter, Mama Ngozi said softly, her eyes warm. You are truly a blessing to this home. May God bless the day your mother gave birth to you. Amarachi smiled, her fingers skillfully peeling the cocoyam. Thank you, Mama. I am the one who is blessed to have you as a mother. Mama Ngozi paused, her hands still, her eyes studying Amarachi. She had come to love this girl as her own, and in her heart she prayed that God would complete what he had started. Chijioke sat in his room, staring at the rainfall outside his window, the file on his table forgotten. His mind was filled with thoughts of Amarachi, her laughter, the way she prayed before cooking, the calm in her voice whenever she greeted him. Why does she occupy my thoughts so much? He asked himself, frustration mixing with confusion. His fear of marriage still clung to him like a stubborn shadow. He had seen marriages crumble in the city, had seen friends cry over unfaithful wives and families torn apart by small misunderstandings. But every time he looked at Amarachi, something inside him told him she was different. But was different enough? The annual New Yam Festival was approaching, and the village was alive with preparations. Women pounded yam, men repaired drums, and children practiced dance steps in the evenings. Mama Ngozi decided it was time for Amarachi to accompany her openly to the festival, and Chijioke, as the head of their family, would walk with them. The morning of the festival, Amarachi dressed in a beautiful blue and white wrapper, beads adorning her neck, and her hair braided neatly. She looked radiant, her smile as bright as the morning sun. When Chijioke saw her, he froze for a moment, his breath catching in his throat. She was beautiful, but it was not just her beauty that struck him. It was the purity that radiated from her, the way she greeted him with respect, her eyes calm and full of light. You look beautiful, Chijioke said, his voice quiet. Thank you, Chijioke, Amarachi replied, lowering her eyes with a shy smile. Mama Ngozi watched them from the doorway, her heart swelling with hope. The festival ground was alive with music, the drums beating like the heartbeat of the village. Women danced with calabashes balanced on their heads, and young men performed acrobatic dances, leaping high into the air. Amarachi sat beside Mama Ngozi, clapping and laughing softly at the dances. Chijioke stood near them, arms folded, pretending to watch the dance but stealing glances at Amarachi. At one point, Amarachi joined other girls in a dance circle, her steps graceful, her laughter ringing clear. The people watched, nodding and whispering, Amarachi is a good girl. See how she carries herself with respect. She would make a good wife for Chijioke. As she danced, Chijioke found himself smiling, unable to tear his eyes away from her. For the first time in a long while, he felt joy bubble within him, a joy that was not tied to work or success, but something simple and pure. That evening, after the festival, a heavy rainstorm swept through Okpulu. The winds howled, bending the trees, and thunder cracked across the sky like the sound of ancient drums. Amarachi, who had stayed to help Mama Ngozi, pack leftover food, found herself trapped by the rain. Mama, the rain is too heavy. Let me stay until it reduces, she suggested. Mama Ngozi nodded, grateful for her company. They sat inside, talking softly, while Chijioke sat in the living room, pretending to read. The lightning flashed, illuminating Amarachi's face in the dimly lit room, and Chijioke found himself watching her, the book in his hand forgotten. Suddenly, a loud thunderclap made Amarachi flinch, and she let out a small cry, covering her ears. Chijioke stood immediately, moving toward her without thinking. Are you okay? He asked, his eyes searching hers. She nodded, laughing softly, though her hands still trembled slightly. I have always been afraid of thunder. Chijioke smiled, kneeling beside her. You don't have to be afraid. You're safe here. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, the world seemed to fade, the sound of the rain becoming a gentle lullaby around them. The next day, as the rain cleared and the sun returned, the village women began to talk. They say Amarachi stayed at Mama Ngozi's house during the storm. Ah, it is well, oh, but Chijioke is a grown man and Amarachi is a beautiful girl. Maybe this is how it will start. When Mama Ngozi heard these whispers in the market, she only smiled, refusing to let the tongues of people disturb her peace. In her heart she prayed, God, let them talk. If it is your will, let this union happen. Back at her grandmother's house, Amarachi sat under the mango tree, her fingers twisting the edge of her wrapper. Mama Ifeoma watched her quietly. My child, you have been quiet since you returned from Mama Ngozi's house, Mama Ifeoma said gently. Amarachi sighed, looking at the leaves above her. Mama, I don't know what is happening. I feel something in my heart whenever I see Chijioke, but I don't want to be the reason people talk. Mama Ifeoma placed a wrinkled hand on Amarachi's. People will always talk, my child, but it is God who writes our stories, not people. Amarachi looked into her grandmother's eyes and nodded, tears gathering in hers. I just want to do what is right, Mama. Pray about it, Amarachi. Let God lead you. That night, Chijioke had a dream. He saw himself in a field, standing alone, the wind blowing around him. Suddenly, Amarachi appeared, walking towards him with a child in her arms, a bright smile on her face. She handed him the child, and as he held the baby, a peace he had never known washed over him. He looked at Amarachi, and she reached out, touching his cheek softly. Do not be afraid, Chijioke, she said in the dream. You will not lose yourself by loving. He woke up with a start, sweat on his forehead, his heart pounding. The dream felt real, the peace still lingering in his chest. He knelt beside his bed and whispered a prayer he had never thought he would pray. God, if Amarachi is your will for me, give me the courage to love her. The next day, Chijioke went to the stream where Amarachi often fetched water in the evenings. He found her there, her feet in the water, washing clothes, her humming mixing with the sound of the flowing river. Amarachi, he called softly. She looked up, surprised, water dripping from her hands. Chijioke, what are you doing here? He walked closer, his heart pounding. Can we talk? She nodded, stepping out of the water, wrapping her arms around herself as the breeze blew. There was silence for a moment, the sound of the river filling the space between them. Amarachi, I don't know how to say this, Chijioke began, looking down at his feet. I have been afraid of marriage for a long time, but you have shown me something different. Amarachi's eyes widened, her breath catching. I see the way you care for my mother, The way you carry yourself with humility and strength, he continued, lifting his eyes to meet hers. And I see the way you love God. Tears gathered in Amarachi's eyes as she whispered, Chijioke. He stepped closer, his hands trembling. I don't know everything about love, and I'm still afraid, but I don't want to lose you. I I think I'm falling in love with you. Amarachi covered her mouth, tears rolling down her cheeks. She looked at him, her eyes filled with emotion. I have been praying, Chijioke, she whispered, her voice shaking. I have been praying that if it is God's will, you would see me. Chijioke smiled, tears in his own eyes. Then let us keep praying together. They stood by the river, the breeze washing over them, as they joined hands and prayed softly, committing their hearts to God's will. In the distance, the sun began to set, painting the sky with colors of hope and promise. The river flowed gently, like a song of blessings, as the village of Okpulu unknowingly witnessed the birth of a new love story. And in that moment, Chijioke knew that his mother's sacrifice, her prayers, and even her disguise as a beggar had not been in vain. The morning sun rose over Okpulu with the sweet scent of wet earth still hanging in the air after the night's light rain. Birds sang as they hopped from tree to tree, and the village stirred awake, unaware that in a small compound near the mango tree, a love story was quietly blooming. Mama Ngozi sat on her bamboo chair, eyes closed, her lips moving softly in prayer. In her heart, she thanked God for the seed he had planted in Chijioke's heart for Amarachi. She could feel the change in her son, the way he now smiled more, the way he paused to help her with chores, and the way his eyes searched for Amarachi whenever she visited. But Mama Ngozi knew that every good seed must pass through testing before it can bear fruit. By mid-morning, the entire village had heard whispers of Chijioke and Amarachi's blossoming closeness. In the market, women exchanged knowing glances as Amarachi walked by to buy peppers. Amarachi, good morning, one of the traders called, a sly smile on her lips. When are we coming to eat rice and chicken at your wedding? Amarachi blushed deeply, lowering her gaze. Good morning, Mama Nkechi. Good morning indeed, Mama Nkechi chuckled. We are watching, oh, just remember to invite us. Amarachi hurried away, her heart pounding. She did not like the attention, but deep inside, she felt a warmth that made her steps lighter. Not everyone was pleased. Nnenna, the daughter of a wealthy palm oil trader in the village, had always wanted Chijioke for herself. She was known for her beauty, her loud laughter, and her taste for fine things brought from the city. She had visited Chijioke's house many times, bringing cooked meals and greeting Mama Ngozi with exaggerated respect. When she heard about Chijioke's interest in Amarachi, jealousy burned in her chest like hot pepper. Amarachi, that poor orange seller, she hissed to her friend at the market. What does she have that I don't? Her friend, a slim girl with sharp eyes, laughed. Maybe she has what money cannot buy. Nnenna's eyes narrowed. We shall see. That afternoon, Nnenna dressed in her finest wrapper and carefully applied white powder to her smooth, dark skin. She carried a basket of fried chicken and soft drinks and made her way to Mama Ngozi's compound. Mama, good afternoon, she called sweetly, kneeling to greet her. Mama Ngozi, who was peeling yam, looked up, surprised. Ah, Nnenna, welcome. What brings you here? Nnenna smiled, revealing her white teeth. I just came to greet you and check on you, Mama. You know I always remember you. She placed the basket before Mama Ngozi, who looked at it, nodding slowly. Thank you, my daughter. As they spoke, Nnenna's eyes darted around, searching for Chijioke. She found him near the kitchen, fixing a leaking water pot. Chijioke, good afternoon, she called, her voice like honey. Chijioke looked up, his face neutral. Good afternoon, Nnenna. I brought chicken and drinks for you, she said, stepping closer. You have been working so hard, and you deserve to eat well. Chijioke wiped his hands on a cloth, nodding politely. Thank you. Nnenna's smile widened as she lowered her voice. Chijioke, you know I have always cared for you. Everyone in the village knows we are good together. This Amarachi that people are talking about, she is not your type. Chijioke's eyes hardened slightly. Nnenna, Amarachi is a good woman. She is poor, Nnenna snapped before catching herself. She quickly adjusted her tone. I mean, she doesn't fit your status. You are a man of the city, a leader. Think of what people will say. Chijioke stood straighter, his voice calm but firm. I do not care what people say. I care what God says. Nnenna's face fell, and for a moment her eyes flashed with anger before she forced a smile. I just want what is best for you. I know what is best for me, Chijioke replied, turning to continue his work. Nnenna left the compound, her footsteps heavy with anger, the basket of chicken untouched. That evening, as Chijioke walked Amarachi back to her grandmother's house, he noticed she was quiet, her steps slower than usual. Amarachi, are you okay? He asked softly. She nodded, forcing a small smile. I'm fine. But Chijioke could sense something was wrong. He stopped, turning to face her under the light of the moon. Amarachi, please, talk to me. She sighed, looking down at her fingers. People are talking, Chijioke. They say I am not good enough for you, that you deserve someone better. Chijioke lifted her chin gently, forcing her to meet his eyes. Amarachi, do you believe what they say? Tears gathered in her eyes as she shook her head. No, but I don't want to be the reason people look down on you. Chijioke wiped her tears with his thumb, his voice soft. You could never be the reason people look down on me. You are a blessing to me, Amarachi. She sobbed softly, leaning her forehead against his chest, and he wrapped his arms around her gently, allowing her to cry. The next morning, Amarachi visited Mama Ngozi early, helping her prepare breakfast. Mama Ngozi noticed Amarachi's puffy eyes. My daughter, what troubles you? Mama Ngozi asked as she stirred the pot. Amarachi paused, her hands gripping the pestle tightly. Mama, people say I'm not good enough for Chijioke, that I am too poor. Mama Ngozi put down the spoon and walked over to Amarachi, placing a hand on her shoulder. Amarachi, listen to me. A woman's worth is not in the wealth she brings, but in the peace she carries. Tears fell from Amarachi's eyes as Mama Ngozi continued. When I married Chijioke's father, I had nothing but a single wrapper and faith in God. We built everything together. Do not let the words of people steal what God is giving you. Amarachi nodded, hugging Mama Ngozi tightly, her tears wetting the old woman's wrapper. That Sunday, Chijioke, Amarachi and Mama Ngozi went to the small church in the village. The pastor, a kind man with gray hair and a gentle voice, preached about God's timing and purpose in relationships. After the service, the pastor called Chijioke and Amarachi aside. I have watched you both, he said softly, and I see God's hand upon you. Do not let fear or the voices of people stop what God is building. Chijioke and Amarachi looked at each other, and in that moment, peace settled in their hearts. One afternoon, Amarachi was walking to the market when she saw a small child barefoot and crying by the roadside. His clothes were torn and he held his stomach, crying for food. Without hesitation, Amarachi took the small loaf of bread she had bought for herself and knelt beside the boy. "Eat, my son," she said softly, tearing the bread and feeding him with gentle hands. A woman nearby watched the scene and later ran to tell Mama Ngozi what she had seen. "Mama Ngozi, your daughter-in-law is truly a gift. She gave her only bread to a hungry child without thinking twice." Mama Ngozi smiled, tears of gratitude filling her eyes as she whispered, "Thank you, God." That evening, Chijioke gathered his courage and decided it was time to make his intentions known publicly. At the evening village meeting, where young men gathered to discuss community work, Chijioke stood up, clearing his throat. "My brothers," he began, his voice steady, "I want to announce that I have found the woman I want to marry. Her name is Amarachi, and she is a blessing to my family and me." There was silence before cheers erupted, some clapping him on the back, others shouting blessings. When Nnenna heard the news, she felt as if a stone had dropped in her stomach. She stormed away, tears of anger in her eyes. When Amarachi heard what Chijioke had done, she covered her mouth in shock, tears streaming down her cheeks. "God, thank you," she whispered, kneeling beside her bed that night, lifting her hands in worship. Her grandmother, Mama Ifeoma, placed a hand on her shoulder. "My child, God has remembered you." A few days later, under the old mango tree near the stream, Chijioke knelt before Amarachi, holding out a simple wooden ring he had carved himself. "Amarachi, I do not have riches to offer you, but I offer you my heart and my promise to honor you, love you, and build a family with you under God's guidance. Will you marry me?" Tears poured down Amarachi's cheeks as she covered her face briefly before looking at him, her eyes shining like stars. "Yes, Chijioke, I will marry you." They embraced under the mango tree, the breeze carrying the sweet scent of hope across the village of Okpulu.